Hello, Abigail here with the astrology and tarot reading for the new moon in Sagittarius. This new moon is on the 20th of December and is at 12:43 a.m. CST. So, this is an intense final new moon, the last one of 2025, and it's really powerful and karmic. There's so much energetic involvement going on. We have the final major aspects to Saturn and Neptune in Pisces, the final ones with Neptune in particular. This is the last time we will see these aspects in our lifetime in those signs because Neptune has a long cycle. And so, this is a goodbye moment for us. It's been a long, long trek. It's been 14 years since 2011, and we're saying goodbye. I think I don't know the exact date, but late January, we see Neptune going into Aries for the final time, where it will be for another roughly 14 years. And so, yeah, this is the closing not only of 2025, but of this massive 14-year cycle. Not to mention, it's a 20 plus year cycle for Saturn as well, because Saturn has a 28, 29-year cycle. And depending where your placement is, it can also bleed a little into 30. Just depends on how the retrogrades fall. But yeah, so this is a big deal, and it's also ruled by Jupiter, which is one of the great planets, and also the great benefic. It is retrograde in Cancer, and it is in conjunct this moment, which means it doesn't really have a connection by sign. However, it is connected by trine to the square. It's like this little trail. It's over in Cancer, and it's connected by trine to Neptune and Saturn, which is square the Sun and Venus at this point. So it's a really interesting moment of something that is really difficult. I'm not going to downplay that. Jupiter brings in this free flow of energy as the ruler of this moon that makes it very functional. And I think you're going to see some interesting things come out of this new moon. Some I don't say hidden gifts because they're not quite hidden, but some unexpected gifts. Some gifts that were like, wow, much needed, not something I was planning on. I do think there'll be a bit of a run out because these are slower moving planets. It's not going to be like an instant gratification moment. Also, we have Venus squaring Saturn and conjunct the Sun. So this is a massive relational moment. If you're interested in past life astrology or past life things, this is a very karmic lunation. This is a moment when a lot of clarity can be had and a lot of beginning can be had when it comes to our own internalized karmic cycles and past life patterns. How can you tell if you have past life patterns? If you see patterns repeating that do not make sense in the context of your life, where you're like, it happened a couple times, but now it's been like 7. And that doesn't really make sense in the context of what's happening. And I can't seem to avoid it. The unavoidability is kind of the signature of past life stuff, things that you literally can't get out of and that you can't seem to stop, even when you've made massive changes, even when you've gone to therapy, even when you've done things, you just keep meeting the same people and being in the same circumstances. This moon is an opportunity to confront and face and, in a sense, sever these patterns and cycles. This might be the time to consider karmic remediation, which can be done in a number of ways. I do it through Reiki. Some people can do it through hypnosis. Other ways exist. But maybe something to consider if you have a lot of patterns. Also, something that's really important is Mercury is in its exact square, T-square, to the nodes, which is exactly where the last moon was. So we're not only associating these lunations by sign because they're in opposing signs, full moon in Gemini, new moon in Sagittarius, but we are also getting a callback with that now direct but retrograde previously Mercury finally out of the shadow period and into this square with the nodes. This is our final point of decision. This is us choosing something as we head into 2026 that is going to set us up as we go through the year. And so this is a really important time to be concise, to make choices that are best for you. And now I don't mean to make choices that are perfect because that doesn't exist. but to choose in this moment how you plan to proceed in the direct future. To say, I refuse to do these patterns. I refuse to fall into these traps. I refuse to ignore those red flags, especially because we have Venus conjunct. Like, what are the relational patterns you keep seeming to reproduce, whether in friendships, romantic relationships, family dynamics? And how can you just say, not this time? Not again. It doesn't mean that we won't fall into an accident. If you, like me, were raised by a narcissist, they're real sneaky. I'm not saying that you have to become omnipresent and know all, but when you see the flags, to immediately nip it in the bud. Do not, because also trauma brain often second guesses itself. Do not second guess yourself. Do not doubt or question your decisions. This is the time to be very Jupiterian, very Sagittarian, and to step into your belief in yourself and the work that you have done. This is also very true because of the square with Saturn and the trine with Saturn. Venus is square Saturn. This is when relationship dynamics that aren't working really won't work. And if you have been, the eclipses back in Virgo season really did a number on relationships because there was a South Node eclipse, and South Node eclipses, especially in Virgo, are purging. If you have been hanging on to a relationship that you did not purge during the South Node eclipse, this is that moment where make or break will happen. And doesn't mean that that relationship is over, but if you continue to pursue it, you will hit a bigger combustion in Pisces season when we have another eclipse on that axis. And we'll be starting a new axis, which will complicate things. So this time, while it is tricky with where it falls in the Western holiday season, this is the time to do what is best for you, even if it's hard. And to do what is best for your future and the future of your soul, even if it feels difficult and overwhelming. We can do anything when we are forced to. It doesn't mean that those things are good. It just means that humans are very often overly resilient. So this is the time to call back your power. If there is some kind of ritual you would like a suggestion on for this new moon, I would suggest a power callback, to call back in your power from people and places where you have let it wander and go astray, and see what happens to those dynamics afterwards when you call your power back. Calling your power back doesn't destroy a relationship. It doesn't eliminate anything, but it simply takes back parts of yourself that didn't need to be sacrificed in order to be loved. And if there are dynamics where you need to continue to sacrifice parts of yourself in order to be loved, this is your sign to set boundaries, sever it yourself, or wait for it to sever itself once you set the boundaries. People who don't like boundaries don't usually stay in boundaried relationships. So this moment is really intense, really make or break, really a wonderful time to harness energy, understanding that energy is complex, understanding that there is no right and wrong, there is no perfect way, there is no exact timing for anything. We are all karmic beings on a karmic path, interacting with other karmic beings, and we're all twiddling with and messing with the timelines at the same time. But this is that time to call back in your power. This is that time to be bold and be brave about what you want. And if you feel like the universe has been conspiring against you, as it were, now is the time to say, hey, I would appreciate if you wouldn't. Now is the time to set energetic boundaries with how much you rely on external forces for your internal impetus. Um, I call the energy, the larger energies in the world, the universe, and I work with them. But it is a give and take and a push and pull. It is not me suffering under the oppression of an overpowering being. That ideology comes from Christianity, and not all Christianity, but especially very westernized Christianity, the Christianity in the U.S. This idea that there is a all-powerful being who is messing with and fiddling with your life and manipulating you. I encourage you to unpack that and to work with the universe as a neutral energy of force that has cause and effect and is ruled and rules science and magic. It is still beholden to its own system, as all things are, even if they create them. So this is the time to recreate and rewrite that relationship, that dynamic, understanding your personal power, understanding the powers around you, understanding the powers that the spirits and the ancestors and the beings that you work with, but not portioning to any of them so much power that it is crippling for you. I work with things very often don't go the way that I had hoped. But that doesn't mean that I'm being conspired against. It doesn't mean that I don't have options. And I would encourage you to get Jupiterian about it, to play bolder, to play more aggressively, to push against the square that we're feeling right now, to see what happens when you do. And yeah, maybe it's not going to be a fun answer, but it'll be an answer that'll give you a lot of knowledge and wisdom, especially with Jupiter in charge. Jupiter is, after all, wisdom, and Sagittarius is, after all, this pursuit of such wisdom. So yeah, this is a pivotal moment. It's at 28 degrees, very close to an anaretic degree. But yeah, this is close to the end of this Gregorian calendar year. We will be shifting into 2026 very soon. While I prefer the zodiacal year because it follows, um, the cycles of at least the Western Hemisphere. Not the Western Hemisphere, Northern Hemisphere. There we go. The Northern Hemisphere, at least the way in which we read it in the West. While it also has meaning in the Southern Hemisphere, you have to kind of shift it based on the shifting of the seasons. But yeah, now is the time to do the thing that you've been afraid of. Now is the time to push back against the things that you feel powerless against. Now is the time to recognize that life is hard, but that doesn't mean that there's not hope, and it doesn't mean that you don't have things to do. And maybe this moon for you is a moment of just chaotically running into the future, and that is good enough. Oh, and I just retrieved my thought as to why I just went into a rabbit trail. Thank you, ADHD. I prefer using the zodiacal year, but the Gregorian calendar year has created its own energy, and so we do feel endings at this time. It's an energetic system. That's how energetic systems work. When you put them in place, they create their own energy, and it builds over time. And so this is also an ending. While I encourage people not to treat it the way we often treat the new year, with like, let me try something fun and different, not the smartest move to do, unless you need something to distract yourself during the center of a Saturn ruled season. We are already on a journey. But if you really want to start something new or get a new habit, then maybe do it at the end of Pisces season into the spring, because that's when you will have the energy and you'll have the sunlight in order to help you do that. Anyways, I'm going to pull the tarot for this moment. A lot of embodiment cards. Oh, yeah. Interesting. So I don't usually read reversals, but if somehow one of my cards gets lifted around and it's not half the deck, I will read them when they come out. And we have the Tower reversed, which I find is interesting. If you do the work of Saturn, if you have been doing the work, this moment can be a reversal in your destiny. It can be a reversal in what you might consider your lot in life. It can be a reversal of things that have been crumbling around your ears. Not that you're going to get back what you have lost, but that you're going to be able and capable of rebuilding and renewing and stepping into something that is more stable and more conscious. Tower takes time, both to crumble, but especially to rebuild. So look at 2026 as your year of rebuilding, as your year of progressing. And if you don't want to see it as 2026, see the time from this new moon in Sagittarius to the next new moon in Sagittarius. It's semantics, I know, but see that time as the time of rebuilding, of re-understanding yourself, of creating a foundation that is more healthy and more functional. And when I say healthy, I do not mean perfect. I mean simply something that has been thought through, that you have positioned to be better for who you are and how you function. But I will go into the other cards that we have drawn first. We have the Six of Cups. I do love this card. This is about options and choices, and I think it's very telling as we have this card, because we get this moment of what are we going to build, and what choices am I going to make, and what decisions are true and right for me, and also what are options I have never even considered. Are there things I have never even imagined doing that are now a possibility because I have experienced these tower moments and I am rebuilding? And so while there is restriction and restraint built into this new moon, what are the things you have never imagined? What is this Neptune trine Jupiter moment? What is this Saturn trine Jupiter moment? This moment when possibility and structure and magic and dreaming all come together and give us untold options that we never thought were possible. I would also say that something around this new moon might be an opportunity to do something a little crazy, at least according to the life that you have lived. Now is the time to maybe take that chance to do those things. And the reason I say that is that we do have the queens. We have the Queen of Wands, the Queen of Swords, and for me, the court cards are about embodiment. What do we do? What do we embody? What do we focus on? And we have these queens. We have the Queen of Swords, which is about thought and decision, and the Queen of Wands, which is about impetus and passion and that kind of like core desire that we have. How can you take the decision and the thought and the wisdom of knowing how to manage that all at once? And then the control and power of desire, when we can harness it for the things that we want and we need. And also, don't forget, this is a fire moon. It happens at the darkest time of the year, because we are right on the cusp of the winter solstice, which is the longest night of the year. And so, like, what are we sitting in? What do we need to do, and how can we do it? How can we claim our power and do the things that we want, and do them concisely and practically? I also find that the queens are very focused and very intent on what they want, and they don't second guess themselves, just like the kings. Doesn't mean that fear doesn't exist, because we do have Nine of Swords here. Doesn't mean that there aren't doubts and concerns and night terrors that come to us in these moments of big change, but it does mean that we have tools and we have power and we have experiences and desire and thought on our side, and it's time to believe them and to dig into them and to embrace them and to see life for what it is, which is a complex and intertwined and entangled blip in time that we get to exist in that feels both long and very short. And so, what can you do with what you have to claim what you deserve, what you desire, what you need, and to be honest and true with yourself? And yeah, we do have the Nine of Swords. We do have doubts and worries and fears. The squares with Venus are going to bring up our feelings of abandonment and any sense of loneliness or lack of belonging, because you are in this kind of resistant energy to the status quo, to the systems, to the forces, to the way things are. And so, yeah, fear exists. Fear of failure, fear of loss. In the dark, things can seem more terrifying than they are in the light. We are in the darkest part this year. But know that you are on the journey that you get a say in and that you get a choice in. And last but not least, actually, I'll do the second card for the bottom of the deck, because it is the card of Sagittarius. We have Temperance, which is the card of Sagittarius, which is about finding this internal, external flow and energy, this regulation, this ability to shift with the energies and the time and the magic that we were born with, and to find our way, and to believe in the path that we have chosen, and to take hope from our journey and how far we've come and the knowledge we have attained. And then we have the Ace of Wands. This is a beginning, a sneaky beginning, a beginning that feels hard, and that has resistance to it, but it's a beginning, it's a rebirth, it's a moment of recognizing what is possible and what we have already made possible. and hold on to what you know and what you've done, and that you can rebuild, and that you can create something for yourself with the people that you love, with the communities that you care about. And that in these times that are very unsure and very chaotic, and I'm not saying that other times haven't been, but it has been a lot, especially if you um, live in the US. I know other countries have their problems too, but it has been a lot under the current situation. um, but we all get to build on our little corner of the tapestry of the existence we have been put into. And so I encourage you to rebuild that corner and to believe. And I think if you mark this down and you come back a year from now, next new moon in Sagittarius, I think you will find that a lot of the things that you started really came to fruition, and came to fruition a lot faster than you expected. And yeah, there's a lot of work to be done. I've got an Eight of Pentacles staring me in the eyeball from the bottom of my deck. There's work to be done. There's things to be fine-tuned and crafted, but you're already well on your way, and this is a turning point. And I'm excited for all of us to experience that. Recognizing that turning points are difficult, especially if you're autistic like me, changing direction. But we can all change direction when we are clear, Queen of Swords, and passionate about what we want. Anyways, my love, blessed new moon in Sagittarius.